What's going on YouTube? It's Teach back again with another video, and today we're talking about the Las Vegas Raiders in our 2021 NFL season preview series. I realized the Raiders should have come before the LA Chargers, but last versus loss kind of confused me there, and I apologize for that. But the Raiders are a video behind, but here we are talking about them nonetheless. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, please hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more sports content like this, please consider subscribing. And let me hear your thoughts on the Las Vegas Raiders down in the comments section. How many wins do you think this team comes away with? Who are some X factors? What are some games you're looking forward to see this team play? Love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section. I'll respond to every comment. So let's talk about the Raiders down below. So win range, kind of like what we talked about with the Chargers, it's pretty wide. This team has a lot of variables, and we'll talk about that as we move along in this video, but 6 to 11 wins. I really could see this team being pretty bad, picking top 10 next year, but additionally, I could see this team putting together a solid season and maybe knock on the door, making the playoffs. Comes down to a lot of the young players on this roster. I have them right now at 10 wins, and looking back at that way too early season predictions video I did, 10 feels kind of high for where I really stand on this team. But nonetheless, they do have, a plus level QB, a good play caller in John Gruden. Like, he has a good offensive scheme that he's built together. Josh Jacobs, solid running back. The offensive line is, being pieced together, but it's still, average at least. And there's things to like about the pass catching core if you lump in Darren Waller. And they spent so much money trying to address the pass rush that you think, in theory, that it's better. Additionally, you bring in Gus Bradley, again, in theory, on paper. That improves the defense just by simplifying it and not trying to do too much and not giving up, big plays off of busted coverage and things of that nature. So all that culminates to a team that was 8-8 last year, feeling like they are a lot better. So 10 wins maybe isn't egregious. Maybe I'm not too far off, but I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Realistic goal, be the second best team in the division, right? Like, Kansas City feels like they have the AFC West on lock, barring any crazy injury to Patrick Mahomes. And as long as Denver doesn't have Aaron Rodgers, I think that second spot in the division is open. And it's really between the Raiders and the Chargers. Off of my way too early season preview video I did, I have it as the Raiders, but I don't know, kind of losing momentum, kind of fading the Raiders, picking up on the Chargers. But, if you missed my Chargers video, go back and check that out. And the Raiders, like I said, have a lot of pieces in place to where I understand if you think this team can make the playoffs, I won't argue against you if you have your own case and you have a strong head on it. Time will tell. Reach goal, maybe win a playoff game, right? Let's say they make the playoffs and then they make it into the wild card round and come away with a win. It'd have to be a road win because they're a wild card team, but that in itself would be progress moving in the right direction since John Gruden got hired a second time by the Raiders. 4 wins in year 1, 7 in year 2, 8 last year. And if they were to make the playoffs this year and win a playoff game, that is solid progression for him trying to turn this team around in that 10-year contract that the Raiders gave him. So they're making progress, and I think if this year they come away with a playoff win, that's a solid reach goal, and it would be a mark in the right direction. Some X factors. Bryan Edwards is a guy that I think they're going to have to rely on pretty heavily. In my eyes, it feels like Henry Ruggs is just going to inherit that Nelson Aguilar type role where he's the field stretcher, he's the burner, he's the one that defenses have to play over top against and have to keep an eye on. And last year was Nelson Aguilar, and hearing Derek Carr kind of talk about the added confidence Henry Ruggs has now having an offseason going into year 2, knowing the playbook, all that stuff you always hear veterans say about young guys. I buy into it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Additionally, no Nelson Aguilar, so that role is vacated. There's a vacuum there. But I'd also like to see this team use Henry Ruggs underneath on drags, give him the ball in open space. But because of the skill set of Henry Ruggs, this team doesn't have that big body, physical archetype. And I think Bryan Edwards can be that. Liked his game coming out of college. It was a little strange that the Raiders, doubled up on wide receiver in that draft, considering how many holes they had. But nonetheless, they got good value in Edwards. He didn't see the field a whole lot last year, and they need someone to be an X, right? Like, you have Darren Waller, who can serve as that because of his frame and given his athletic ability, and he might be the best tight end in football, depending on how you look at that position. But they need Edwards, and if Edwards can take that step forward and be a reliable starting outside guy, then you have Hunter Renfrow, who is solid in the slot, and then Ruggs is your field stretcher if you're into position, putting guys into groups and saying you have a defined role. And then you have Darren Waller, who's just this ultimate X factor. You can do so many things. You can line him up on the outside, in the slot, in line, basically everything we say about Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller's been doing it for the last couple of years. So, Edwards is a guy they're going to need to have step up as that, 3rd and 8. This guy can convert when Waller's being double teamed. We need someone else to be able to get open and make a big catch. I think Edwards is that guy to try to take a step forward. Alex Leatherwood, hate to have back-to-back videos where a first-round tackle is highlighted as an X factor because obviously if you're going to be starting as a first-round pick, you are an X factor. But Alex Leatherwood's skill set almost makes you think he might fit better at right tackle, right? Because a lot of the critiques on his game were he's not refined as a pass blocker and he's a mauler in the run game, so maybe he fits better at guard. But also, maybe you can say he has a fitting skill set to play right tackle. You still would like to see him be a better pass protector. You have to think that Tom Cable, being one of the best offensive linemen or offensive line coaches in the league right now, has a plan in place to improve that area for Alex Leatherwood. And if he just becomes a competent pass blocker, given what he'll do in the run game and the holes he'll open up for Josh Jacobs on the right side, him and Denzel Good at right guard, right tackle, respectively, that bodes well for this team, trying to, run the ball first, set up play action with Derek Carr. But, again, I have my concerns in the pass protection game. You'd prefer not to have Derek Carr get hurt, a guy who has battled some injuries in his past. The advantage, I guess, is the right tackle, so Carr will see it coming versus the left. But, like I said, Tom Cable, took on a project in Colton Miller, and he's a pretty solid left tackle now. Maybe he can do the same with Alex Leatherwood. And it also helps he'll face Yannick Ngakoue, Clelin Ferrell, Max Crosby, all these guys who are pretty solid edges throughout training camp. So he'll learn through fire as well. And my last X factor, the guy on your screen, Trevon Mullen. I think he fits really well in that cover 3 defense that Gus Bradley's going to run. And, I think cover 3 and having that be your base, I think it's phasing out, right? Like the days of the Legion of Boom and how Dan Quinn was so heavily praised, and then it was history that people were trying to pull from, guys like Gus Bradley. I think that time in the NFL is going to start to die out, and cover 3 is just going to be kind of a supplement. But push comes to shove, it's a good defense to build the foundation upon. Like this Raiders defense was pretty bad last year, and they just need something to make it simple and limit big plays. And hey, cover 3, that's what you're looking for there. And they have some players that I think fit it really well. Obviously, Casey Hayward is familiar, played with Gus Bradley with the Chargers, so that makes sense. Good scheme fit there. And I think Trevon Mullen fits well with that outside boundary cover 3 corner. You're going to get a third of the field, keep your guy in front of you. And overall, I think he's a guy who, when he's on the field, he hasn't been as bad as people want to make him out to be. He's been okay. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't been terrible. A lot of people want to tell you Trevon Mullen has been garbage, but I don't know about that. And he's still young. He's still getting there. A lot of times, corners takes more than a year. Sometimes it takes more than 2. So let's be patient with Trevon Mullen. And if he takes a step forward, kind of like what we talked about with Bryan Edwards, like part of why they're in the X Factors is if they get better, it brings about exponential change for this team in a positive manner, right? Like if Edwards is good, that wide receiver core goes from one of the worst to, at least middle of the pack. And if Trevon Mullen takes a step forward, you have him, Hayward. I like what they have in regards to potential nickel corners. Next thing you know, that secondary looks way better because Jonathan Abrams can play in the box. He can be a hard-hitting safety. And Trevon Merritt can be a lot of different things. He could be your nickel corner for if that's what you want. Divine Diablo, also late round pick for them. Tyree Gillespie out of Missouri. I mean, they invested a lot into the secondary. That makes a huge difference. And plus, better secondary play helps that pass rush that they spent, 2 years, $26 million on Yannick Ngakoue trying to improve. They brought in Solomon Thomas, who can be an interior and edge rush type of weapon. And Quentin Jefferson, they bring him in, and they bring back Rankins. So you have some pieces in place across the defensive line, but what will help all those guys is improve secondary, and that kind of starts with Trevon Mullen. Because if he gets better, you have him and Hayward on the outside. That creates a solid duo for the Raiders. Some games to watch, and we'll close this video out. Week 2 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Actually, all these games are road games, so kind of get a mindset for where I think this team's going to be at. They're always pretty good at home, right? And especially with the Death Star is what they're calling it now. That's a pretty tough place to play, and they should be good at home. So I want to see this team win some big games on the road. In week 2 against Pittsburgh, I know a lot of people are fading Pittsburgh right now, but they are a team that's going to be in and around the hunt for a wild card spot, in my opinion. And if the Raiders, win week 2, that obviously good for a game's advantage and, potential tiebreaker. So I just want to watch that. But also, this is a Raiders team that typically starts out hot, then peters off. So I want to see if they continue to get out to that hot start. And this is a game that's a good barometer for that. Again, AFC opponents, you're going to have these two teams fighting to get into the playoffs via the wild card. So this would be a good one if the Raiders can come away with a win and had that tiebreaker against Pittsburgh. Fast forward 10 weeks, you get to week 12 at Dallas. Kind of said this with the Chargers video. Anytime they play the Cowboys, you're going to have the national eyes and the spotlight on you. So this is a big prove-it game for the Raiders. They come away with a win in Dallas. That's going to bolster their stock and how people view them. So obviously it's huge in that regard. But also, it's been 10 weeks. So let's say this team gets out to a hot start. Are you still playing good football? And also, I think this is a team that they can steal one on the road against. Neither one of these teams have very good defenses. So if it becomes a shootout, anything's possible. Like a crazy bounce of the football, one bad call, or one insane play from Darren Waller. Maybe it's Trevon Mullen come away with the one takeaway in the game, right? It can come down to one play when you get into a shootout like that. So I don't think it's impossible for the Raiders to steal this one against the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are a better team, but nonetheless, we've seen crazier things happen. I think that could be a huge road win for Vegas in the middle to late portion of the season. And then week 17 at Indianapolis, kind of similar to what I talked about with Pittsburgh, AFC opponent. These two teams are going to be battling for a wild card spot. So, this is going to be, a fight to potentially make it or not. And then taking on the Colts. This is a little bit different of a matchup. This is a team that's more, based around having a good defense and then having enough of an offense. The Raiders are definitely the inverse, having a good offense, and then you hope their defense can make some plays. So that's an interesting matchup, two inverse, polar opposites in a lot of ways. And then, again, the Raiders typically get out to hot starts and then falter by the end of the year. Week 17, are you playing good football? Are you playing like a playoff caliber team by this point in the year? If not, you're going to lose this game, and you're probably going to be outside the playoff picture by a game like you were last year. I think actually they missed it by 2 games last year because they were 8-8. But regardless, you kind of get what I'm talking about. But maybe they put it all together and they keep playing good football. Or maybe it's just a midseason lull, or they minimize that damage. Instead of being they're good in the first half, bad in the second half, it's just bad for a couple of weeks, but then they pick it back up heading into the playoffs when you really want to be playing good football. So obviously a game I'm looking forward to watching the Raiders play against the Colts. But that's going to do it for my 2021 Las Vegas Raiders season preview. Tell me what you think about the Raiders down in the comments section. How many wins do you think they have? Who are some X factors, some games you're looking forward to watch? I'd love to have your thoughts, and I respond to every comment. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more sports content like this, please consider subscribing. That's going to do it for this one. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.